So one of the first things that you want to do to your site as you're working on these ideas and these designs and you're really considering, the layout, you're taking that time to observe your patterns, your energy flow in your area, where the wind's coming from, your sun angles, right? Your elevations, the trees, the plants that you already have growing. As you're thinking about that and going through those processes, because they're kind of longer, you can start off by just getting your soil ready, right? All soil in probably most of the places on earth where people are gardening and where we're farming and where we're doing our things, the soil is degraded. That's why we have a lot of the weeds, the wild plants growing that we do. So we can start by building compost right away. That's we've covered that before, is stacking those functions of reusing food waste that we have, yard waste that we have, that organic material, breaking it down to help further along the system later on. But we also like that's good, and the point of that is that we can make a tea, we can brew tea, we can do feed our soils, feed our plants, feed our garden areas, and all of these things. But it comes down to a level there that if you don't know what's wrong with your soil, then how are you going to fix it, right? If you already have a soil that's pretty, has a decent acidity, on the pH scale, it's a little lower, more fungal dominant, right, than that bacteria dominant, more alkaline soils, then um, you don't really know if you put too, I don't want to say too much of one thing, but you could be composting to where you're adding too much of something to that soil that it already has. And we don't want to do that with our compost or our teas. Our amendments or the things that we add to should be to plus up those nutrients and those things that it's missing on the smaller, there's less of that, right? So if we learn that balance and we make our teas and our soil amendments and compost and all of these things correctly, based off of what our soil is deficient in, then we're going to have a better rate of success. And there's a few ways that you can test your soil, right? And this is something that I would do on consultations, is we would do a soil test and then see where we're at from there as far as what's needed. Okay. Little side note. Um, but there's a few different methods of doing it. One's the jar shake method, where you collect soil, put it up to there, fill it up with water. You shake the hell out of it, you know what I mean? And then you let it sit, settle out, and then you'll see your different levels of sediment in there. And then you can compare those sediment levels, right? Heavier on bottom, layering up to the lightest material on top. Well, I'll show you an example here in a little bit. But there's a pyramid that you can, of how these different, parts of the soil, sand, the clay, the organic material, the silt, all of that stuff, how they line up and overlap with each other. And then you can determine whether your soil is loamy, which is really good, or it's high sand, or it's clay, or it's really brittle, or, you can judge the brittleness of it at that point, right? So that takes a little bit longer. A brittleness test is one of the first things that you can do on site. You get a wet area of the ground, scoop up a handful of that dirt, and then swish it and squeeze it in your hand and start working it out like you're working clay into a ribbon. And the longer that you can get that ribbon, and the more clay content it has, and it's less brittle, right? If you go a little bit, it just breaks off. It's got a high, maybe silt, maybe sand content to it, to where it's not holding together any well. So then we can determine, then make a plan on how we can add to that to get it to a good brittleness scale to where we can mash it and ribbon it out, right? And that's the purpose of all of these tests, is to find out what our balance is and where we're at, right? Another thing is, pH. I got a pH meter here. I just picked it up. I can't find my other one. But this it says fertility. I'll compare it against this other stuff I'm about to show you in a minute and see what that is. But it'll give you your temperature and your pH, right? Why is temperature important? Well, we don't want hot soil, you know. We don't want oxidized soil. We want to keep it covered. We don't want to burn those roots up and give them a hard environment to live in, you know. So we want it moist and soft, right? Moist and soft, and we don't want it hot. We want it, where those roots can tolerate the temperature of it. So we can get the pH and temperature from that. And then I got this awesome thing at the Our Future Summit. I got off of there this last year. Maybe it was the our soil. I don't remember which one, but it's microbiome biometer, right? And what this does is you take a sample out of one of your jars that you shook up, or you take a sample of your soil, you break it up, you stir it up in a beaker with a little coffee like stir type thing, and then you take let it sit for a minute. You take those results, you compare them against an app, and it'll tell you, you know, your nitrogen to carbon ratio. It'll give you really your overall idea of how fertile and how much biology and life is in your soil. You know, it'll tell you how fungal your soil is. It'll do a lot of really good things to step up and aid in these other ones that we have, right? And then the final step would be to go and look at a sample under the microscope and see what kind of biology is in there. What's living? Is there more of one, you know, of these species than another? Is it fungal? Is it bacterial? So we can really take this soil test to really deep levels of understanding, and I mean down to counting microorganisms right in the microscope. I don't know how to go much further than that. I mean, pretty much got the kit right here to do it. So let's go dig a little sample up. I'll show you the you know, the jar shake method. We'll check it out, and I've got another one here that I pulled from the site last week. I've kind of let it settle out. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's get a sample first. And another thing too, as we're, you know, going through this, you want to test the soil in different spots on your site, right? What it is up here doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be what it is down there, farther uphill, over here where the rain runs off underneath. So it's good to get an idea from everywhere in the yard, or on your site, to know what's going on. So you see, this is really hard soil. It's taking a lot to dig into it, which means it's very compacted. You want to get down about 6 inches. And right now, I've got 2. So we got to work at it a little bit here, but it's very hard. It tells me there's probably a lot of clay in there, which it's Kentucky, so it probably is. We're only a couple miles down over a lake and a few hills from the other side. Let's get down in here just a little bit more. Like I said, I already got a jar here. I just want to show you guys how the shake method works out, how it all shakes out. You know what I mean? So we got the dirt there. Free safe to say it's dirt. You see them bigger chunks. Those are don't really want those. That's clay. We don't want it chunky. We want it fine so that all this stuff settles out. You know what I mean? So we're just breaking it up in the cap is all I'm doing right now. Getting a little less. Again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I already have a sample here. Let me get some water real quick. All right, I got our water. Now we're just going to shake it up. Make sure the lid's on there. You know? Shake it up, look at it. Ball. That's myself. So now you got that nice chocolate milk look to it, right? Just all that sediment's mixed up in the water, and as you let it sit, it's going to settle out. Okay, so here's a jar that I did last week, and it's still, I mean, it's been sitting a week, and there is still all this sediment in the water column up here. So that's really light silt, right? But you can see a layer here, this real dark layer. Oh, the camera's going to start moving, doing crazy stuff. This is mostly, you know, sand. You got clay layer here, sand, and then, man, this camera, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how well you can see it. It's trying to find my face. This is silly. Anyways, so we've got a layer here, and then the layers up here get smaller and smaller. as this settles out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sample from this, and we're going to check it in the microbiome meter. We'll get to that in just a second.